Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Meklord Yugioh deck profile for September 2024. Been wanting to update the Meklords for a while. These are a 5D's fan favorite, just the villains who use them from the Season 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds were really cool with their premise of being able to steal and absorb the protagonist's synchro monsters using their Meklord monsters. We never got the actual pieces that they use in the anime. We had the full machines for this deck, but we did receive some support throughout the years, with the latest being from the Rage of Ra set for setting up the destruction playstyle that the Meklords are meant to utilize, but still happy with the updates I've made to the deck. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the bigger Meklord boss monsters, I have one copy of Meklord Astro Dragon Astric and the one Meklord Astro Dragon Triskelion. Ideally, you could run two Triskelion. I'd say it's a little more easier to special summon out into the field, but it's preference if you do want to run Astric as well. With our Triskelion, you cannot be normal summon or set, must be special summon from your hand by banishing 3 Meklord monsters with different names from your graveyard. And once per turn, when this card declares an attack, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and equip one monster from it to this card. It gains attack equal to the combined attack of those equipped monsters. And while it's equipped with a synchro monster, it can make up to 3 attacks. So this is the benefit, as mentioned before, with the synchro monster play using our Triskelion. Being able just to have those 3 attacks could be the game-winning attack right there. You just need the Meklord monsters in the graveyard to be able to banish to set up this card. We also run the one copy of Meklord Emperor Weisel's Synchro Absorption. It cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by its own effect. During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can send one face-up Meklord monster you control to the graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. And if it's special summon, you can target one monster your opponent controls. It cannot attack for the rest of this turn. And when a card or effect is activated that would destroy a card on the field, quick effect, you contribute this card, negate the activation, and destroy that card. So with this card, it's more of a quick reaction type of monster, being a smaller effect of the Meklord Emperor Weisel, being able to more or less block your opponent's monsters, and then also have the option to negate a card that would destroy a card on the field, also for that extra protection for your own Meklord cards. For the actual Meklord Emperors, we're running 2 copies of Meklord Emperor Grinnell. It cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by its own effect. When a face-up card you control is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. Once per turn, you can target one synchro monster your opponent controls, equip that target to this card, and this card gains attack and defense equal to half your life points and the attack of the equipped combined monster. So even if you don't have an equipped monster and you're at full life points, Grinnell can have 4,000 attack, making it one of the better of the original 3 Meklord Emperors to run in the deck. But we also do still run the 2 copies of Meklord Emperor Weisel. With this card, you can special summon it from your hand with the same destruction effect. Other monsters you control cannot declare an attack. And once per turn, you can target a synchro monster, equip it to this card. This card gains attack equal to by attack of the equipped monster. And when your opponent activates a spell card, quick effect, you can negate the activation and destroy it. So you have a spell negation card with Weisel having 2,500 attack. It doesn't have the big attack gain as Grinnell, but I would say later game, while your life points are lower, it's one of the better ones to summon out. And then lastly, we just run the 1 copy of Skeel. I would say Skeel is kind of the worst of them all, having more of an option for this card being able to absorb a synchro monster. And also, with this card, you can send a monster you control that is equipped to this card to the graveyard. This card can make an attack your opponent directly. So it's a little more specific. It's only really used when you have that synchro monster equipped. It doesn't have any other additional, attack gain, and it has lower attack compared to the other 2 most of the time also. For the Meklord Army cards, we run 3 copies of Meklord Army of Grinnell, just like the original Meklord Emperor. I would say Meklord Army of Grinnell is the better of the army monsters. Gains 100 attack for each Meklord monster in the field, except this card. And when it's normal summon, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and half that target's attack to the end of this turn. So depending on the monster, you can even just have Grinnell get over a good majority of those monsters, as long as that monster has 3,100 attack. When you half it with Grinnell, you'll be able to swing over it with this card alone. And also the 2 copies of Meklord Army of Skeel. It gains 200 attack for each Meklord monster in the field, except this card. And once destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Meklord Army monster from your deck, giving you just access to other Meklord Army monsters that we run in the deck as well, to be able to summon out onto the field. We have some of the newer ones as well, but before we get to those ones, we also run the 3 copies of Meklord Nucleus Infinity Core. The first time this card be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed. You can only use each of the following effects of Meklord Nucleus Infinity Core once per turn. If it's normal or special summon, you can add 1 Meklord Spell Spell Trap from your deck to your hand, and if it's destroyed by a card effect, you can special summon one Meklord Emperor monster from your hand or deck with a different attribute than the monsters you control, ignoring the summoning condition. So with this card, you have just access to the bigger Meklord Emperor monsters as well, being the nucleus or the starting point for those Meklord monsters to be able to be summoned out onto the field. The other Meklord Army monster we run is ideally 3 copies of Meklord Army Deployer Obligato. I have the 1 absorption here just because I only had 2 copies of Obligato. During your main phase, you can activate this effect, destroy this card. If you do, special summon 2 Meklord Army monsters from your deck in defense position, except for Meklord Army Deployer Obligato, and you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn, except for machine monsters. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate this effect during the end phase of this turn. You can inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each Meklord monster you control. So this is more of a burn destruction play, but also just another resource setter for our other Meklord Army monsters to then be able to summon on the field as additional resources. And then lastly, for the main deck monsters, I run a small Kaiju engine just for the fact that we have our Kaiju Spell Interrupted Kaiju Slumber as another way to destroy our own cards, setting up our Kaiju monsters on the field, and then being able to activate our own Meklord monsters when they were destroyed by a card effect while face up on the field. For the spells, I also want to run 3 copies of Meklord Assembly. I have 1 in Meklord Fortress as a placeholder for this card. I would just say Assembly is the better of the cards to use. When this card's activated, you can add 1 Meklord monster from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Meklord Assembly per turn, and you can only use each of the following effects of Assembly once per turn. You can discard 1 card, target a monster you control, destroy it. So there is the destruction play, but also discarding cards means we could set up monsters in the graveyard for our Triskelion. And also, if a face-up Meklord card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one other face-up spell or trap on the field and destroy it. Destruction of your opponent's own face-up spell traps is very, very useful with this card also, having an additional effect to use for that option. And also 2 copies of Meklord Deflection. With this card, you target 1 Meklord monster you control. Your opponent takes no battle damage from attacks involving face-up monsters till the end of this turn. Also, its attack becomes permanently the combined original attack of all other Meklord monsters you currently control. If a Meklord monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard. So it could be potentially another discard off of Assembly if you don't want to use the combined attack option for Deflection. But the fact that it's a permanent attack gain definitely does come in handy. They won't be able to take the battle damage from attacks from face-up monsters until the end of this turn, but still you have that permanent attack of your Meklord monster on the field to use later on. And then for some other cards before we get to the generics, 1 copy of Fortissimo, the Mobile Fortress. This field spell, once per turn, you can special summon a Meklord Army monster from your hand, just saving your normal summon resource for this field spell to use. The 2 copies of Limiter Removal, because they can boost our own attacks, destroying our monsters, and then we can resolve the destroyed by card effect play for our Meklord cards. The 2 copies of Pot of Extravagance and the 1 Pot of Prosperity, because we don't really use the extract for much. So being able to have a little more draw power in this deck always does come in handy. And the last of the spells being the 2 Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, just the destruction and then special summon of the Kaiju of choice to each side of the field. And then also, like I said, destroying our own cards to resolve more of our Meklord Army card effects. For the traps, I run 3 copies of Torrential Tribute, very similar to Limiter Removal. We just have another card effect destruction play, can interrupt our opponent's monsters as well, while also being able to destroy our own Meklord monsters. And then lastly, the 1 copy of Rivalry of Warlords. Each player can only control 1 type of monster, which in our case would be Machine. I would say it conflicts just with the Kaiju play, but most of the time it doesn't really matter, because then if you have your Machine monster and your Kaiju monsters, you could also lock your opponent into their own monster with that 1 Kaiju they have on their field. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extract. For the extract, it's pretty generic, just for what we can run in the lineup. Our Xyz consist of Gear Galleon X, Baguska, Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, our number 81, and our Gustav Max, along with the 1 Sylvan Princess Sprite. As I said, a lot of times they're just going to be banish cost for the Pot of Prosperity or Extravagance, but still, they're options to go into if need be. And then for the Link monsters, I run 2 copies of Relinquished Anima. We got plenty of level 1 monsters, and it also applies to the effect of the deck, being able just to equip our opponent's monsters to our own by using our level 1 monsters. And then also the 1 Underclock Taker, the 1 Moon the Closed Heaven, the 1 Barricade Board Blocker, 1 Lena the Light Charmer, 1 Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, and then the bigger Link monsters are Access Code Talker and the Underworld Goddess of the Cursed World, or the Closed World. So then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I said, destruction is a big part of the setup that this deck can do. So if you have your own destruction cards to destroy your Meklord Army cards, or the ones that are a little easier to set up, Then, once that card is destroyed, you summon out your Meklord Army monster, having the bigger resource on the field, and I would say the best spell being Assembly to set up those cards while also being able to destroy your own cards can give you that early turn access, because then you can have your Meklord Assembly, having your army card in your hand, use Assembly to search out the Meklord Emperor you want to use, discarding one other card. If you use a Meklord Army card, all the better, because then you can set up for your Triskelion, which you have all these other cards in your hand. You can use this card to search out the Triskelion card as well, destroying your Grinnell. Then you could summon out your Meklord Emperor to the field, and then you have your level 1 monster, which you could just use to go into your Link 1 play, having another resource to take your opponent's card, but also giving you the 3 Meklord cards in the graveyard to banish to summon out the Triskelion you searched as well, and another take of your opponent's monster. If you use the Anima and the Triskelion to take your opponent's monsters, that's more likely a good chance to wipe the board clean. If you took a Synchro monster from their extra deck, then you have the 3 swing attack against your opponent also. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, wanted to update this deck for a good while, and finally glad that I got around to it. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.